r/AITA. Story 1. AITA for causing my girlfriend to throw up, and laughing about it. I know this sounds horrible. But let me explain. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 8 months. Shortly after we got together, I found out that she was grossed out by the sounds of somebody popping their neck or their back or anything else. It's not unusual for me to have to pop my neck due to stiffness or due to pressure being put on nerves causing me to have headaches. I try to be conscious of when I do it and not do it around her because I know how much it bothers her. Fast forward to a few days ago, I woke up with my neck bothering me particularly bad and I had a killer headache for hours. I had taken ibuprofen and Tylenol, which did almost nothing, so I basically just muddled my way through my day dealing with the headache. I tried to adjust it multiple times, but it just wouldn't give and I knew better than to push it. After I got off work, her and I were supposed to go to dinner, so when I got home I took another dose of ibuprofen hoping that it would help and I threw a heat wrap around my neck to try to get it to relax. About an hour later she picked me up for us to go out to dinner. It was probably about a 20-minute drive and as we're driving without even thinking about it I once again tried to pop my neck. Apparently the heat wrap worked because after dealing with it all day my neck finally let go. And when I say it let go I don't mean a tiny click or pop. It was a thunderous crunch. I'm talking like full-on action movie breaking somebody's neck kind of a crunch. I almost immediately felt the headache start to go away as if somebody had flipped a switch off, and I was so glad to have finally had it pop for me that I completely forgot that those sort of things grossed her out. The next thing I know she has pulled off the road and barely gets the car in park before jumping out of the door, and I hear her start to gag and heave. I'm confused for a moment, but suddenly remember how much she hates the sound of bones popping. I try to apologize and explain, but by this time she is full on dry heaving and ultimately throws up whatever was in her stomach. As I continue trying to apologize, every time I try to say something she starts dry heaving more. I don't know why, but something about the situation just got the better of me. She was giving me a look that just said, "You motherfucker." I continue to try to apologize, but every time I try to say something she gags again, and after about 15 to 20 seconds I just start laughing, and for whatever reason I can't stop. My best guess as to why, looking back on it, would probably be the endorphin rush I got from my neck finally releasing all that tension after all the hours. I have apologized profusely at this point, but she is still pissed about it. Honestly, I think she's just a little bit embarrassed about her reaction and doesn't want to admit it. I could understand her being mad if I had done it intentionally. But I didn't, it was a complete accident. Comments. Not the asshole. You were in pain and finally released it. Even if it was on purpose, you should be allowed to do that. That being said, I think you should see a physiotherapist, or look up some yoga on YouTube. Something that may help your back get softer. All of it, not just the neck. Your issue will probably only get worse with age, ending up giving you chronic pains and injuries. Story 2. Am I the asshole for telling my sister that my other pregnant sister is planning to name her baby after her deceased son, causing her to cut her off? I have 2 sisters, I'm the middle sister. My older sister, OS, lost her son late 2022, so it hasn't even been 2 years yet. He passed at 6 months due to SIDS. My OS has been mourning him ever since. My little sister, LS, is pregnant with her first child now, and she found out it's a boy. When I was over at her house, we were talking about her plans for the pregnancy and the baby, and she told me she plans to name her son the name of my OS deceased son and keep it a surprise. I can tell she thought it was an honor thing, but knowing my OS, she would be devastated if that happened. I told my LS I don't think it's a good idea and that our OS would not find it to be sweet and an honor, it would hurt her even more. We argued about it and she said that I'm being dramatic. Even though I know it was supposed to be a surprise, I knew my older sister would be even more depressed than she already is if our LS named her son after her deceased son, so I went against my LS wishes and told my OS. As I expected, she was pissed. She said it was incredibly disgusting and selfish to do that, knowing how fresh it is for her, and that she does not want to see a baby with her son's name in the family, which I agreed with. She was very grateful that I told her before he was born because she said she doesn't know how badly that would have triggered her. She of course confronted my LS and they argued about it for a while, with everyone in our family siding with my OS. My LS called me in tears saying I'm the reason that my OS cut her off and isn't speaking to her because she's still going to name her son after our nephew, even with my OS begging her not to, saying that she doesn't find it an honor and that it would hurt her to see another child named after her deceased one. I told my LS she's a horrible person for still going through with this, knowing how much it hurts our OS. She says I'm an asshole for telling her since it was supposed to be a surprise at birth, and that seeing her nephew with her son's name would make her realize it's a good thing, and she's just trying to be a good person, and I'm an asshole for making them fight. Comments. Not the asshole, your little sister isn't dealing with the consequences of her own actions well and is blaming you. You didn't do anything wrong. You explained to her it was a bad idea, she's still going through with it, your older sister is extremely upset by this and your family is upset by this and your little sister is still doing it. Also, losing a child is traumatic and heartbreaking, and it would have absolutely been so much worse if your older sister came and saw your nephew and your little sister said the name of her deceased child, found out you were aware of this and didn't say anything. Story 3. Am I the asshole for hiring a security guard to prevent certain people from coming? Here's a bit of background about me. I'm Asian American, and in my culture, it's common for people who know the family, or are friends of the family or friends of friends, to invite themselves to weddings. That's been my experience. However, my partner and I aren't comfortable with this tradition. So, for our wedding, we decided to send out invitation cards only to friends and family whom we actually know, to prevent random guests from showing up. We also hired a guest list coordinator to ensure that only those with invitation cards could attend. From my perspective, I've seen people or family who clearly don't know the bride and groom show up just for the food. They would only arrive when food was served, take as much as they could fit into containers, and leave before the event was over. If there was alcohol, wine, or beer, they would take those too. I found this behavior really disrespectful. On the wedding day, everything was going smoothly until one of the staff informed me that there was a commotion outside and that my cousin wanted to speak with me. It turned out that my cousin's family had invited their friends. I explained to my cousin that our guest list coordinator was doing their job and that if their friends hadn't received an invitation, they couldn't be admitted. My cousin's family and their friends argued with me about why they needed an invitation, claiming it was tradition, so I should let them in. I stood my ground and asked, "Is this my wedding or yours?" I also told them that if they couldn't respect how the wedding was planned, then they weren't welcome. In the end, they gave up and didn't attend. The wedding went well, and I put the incident behind me. Now, a week later, my cousin is bad-mouthing me for not letting their friends in and accusing me of being westernized, whatever that means. This situation has escalated to the point where our elders have intervened, telling us that we were wrong for not admitting them. My wife and I are frustrated and unsure if we were in the wrong or not. Edit, I forgot to add that I made sure to let the friends and family know what we were doing, only letting people we invited to the wedding, and to make sure they bring the invitation card with them so they could be let in. Comments. Not the asshole. There are certain cultural traditions that are simply stupid. For example, arranged marriages where two folks who have never even met are married. With all due respect, a tradition wherein strangers can come in and carry away all the food and drink similarly qualifies as stupid. There are plenty of rich traditions that we Westerners might consider a bit odd, but hardly stupid. This situation ain't one of them. Story 4. Am I the asshole for refusing to work a full-time job while doing all the housework? My husband and I had began trying for a baby around the start of last year. After seeing both my mother in childhood and my elder sister go through PPD and deal with the stress of having to deal with a newborn, I suggested that in the case I ended up pregnant, I quit my job temporarily until we both had adjusted to taking care of our new child. At the time, my husband seemed supportive, and I forgot about it and left it at that. Around mid-June of last year, I had found out I was pregnant. My husband and I had been ecstatic. At the time, he had been apparently watching a lot of stay-at-home dad videos and I guess had a come-to-Jesus moment and decided that was what he wanted to do, which I was fine with. I gave birth around 5 months ago to my beautiful Lily, and while I was on the paid maternity leave, things seemed to be fine. After my PTO ended, my husband had already put in his 2 weeks. For the past 2 months this has been my life. Whenever I arrive home I just want to relax, but my husband always hands me Lily before shutting himself in his office saying it was his time and tells me to watch her since he is tired. I understand how physically exhausting looking after a child is, but I don't understand how he gets tired since the house is always dirtier than how I usually leave it in the morning. The laundry is never done, the beds are always messy, the dishes are always stacked up, and I often found myself spending 2 to 3 hours after work just cleaning everything up. Not to mention that my husband still expected me to cook dinner, which I was fine with at first, but after having to clean for 3 hours straight and cook for the 3 of us while looking after Lily, I was living on maybe 4 hours of sleep a day, and that's being generous. I want to make it clear Lily is and never will be a burden, but all of this had taken a large toll on my mental and physical health. I decided to sit my husband down and discuss the issue. I suggested getting a babysitter while he looked for a job, but he seemed appalled that I would even suggest such a thing. I told him it was unfair to force me to both support us financially while managing all of the housework. I made it clear that I would definitely help where I could, but that dumping 100% of the responsibility on me while I was the sole provider was unsustainable. He started getting angry and raised his voice at me saying I didn't care about Lily and what he had sacrificed for our family, calling me a bitch and to get out of his face. He's been in his office by himself since last night and I had to call out of work since I couldn't arrange anyone to look after Lily. I can't help but feel guilty because I know firsthand how much of a struggle it is to raise children, especially as first-time parents, but I have to put my foot down as I just can't live like this anymore. Comments. You're not the asshole. This is an extremely reasonable thing to bring up. It sounds well brought up, time and place wise, and is vastly more than fair. I can't think of anything you've done remotely wrong in this situation. Him on the other hand, absolutely unreasonable. It sounds like he saw a video of Easy SAHD life or just thought that it would mean staying with the kid exclusively without getting anything home-wise done. If you are the provider, he needs to actually pull his weight by giving you a home to come home to, not just a messy house. He's definitely the AH. Note, what's he got an office for anyways at this point? You're the provider, it's your office now. Story 5. Am I the asshole for not giving my parents money? For context, my mum never let me work or get a license in school, saying she'll support me financially and do whatever she can while I'm studying. She didn't. I got $20 a month pocket money. After high school I worked really hard to finish my studies so I could get a full-time job. I was only working 2 days a week earning $700 a fortnight, so I couldn't afford a car. Meanwhile, my parents forced me to give $2,500 of my savings to my sister to help her buy her car. I have not been given that money back and told I won't be getting it back anytime soon as they are not doing well financially. I graduated and got myself a full-time job, where I've been working extremely hard to get myself a car. I've saved up $10,000. My parents decided to invest their money into a business, their choice. Now they're $20,000 short as they didn't read their contract properly. I made the mistake of being open with my mum with how much money I have saved, and now she wants the $10,000. I've worked really hard for the money I have earned, and am tired of taking the bus. I am now 22. I told her straight up no. I know I've let my family borrow money from me in the past and I haven't gotten it back, and it seems I won't be getting it back anytime soon. It's been 3 years. I've agreed to get a loan under my name but not the cash. She's been talking bad about me behind my back, saying she won't put me in her will and I'm a bad daughter. Am I the asshole for saying no to giving her the money? My mum has financially controlled me my whole life. Comments. Not the asshole. Do not under any circumstances give your parents your money or take out a loan in your name on their behalf. They will never pay you back and you will be saddled with that debt alone. Stop sharing any of your financial info with your family. Make sure you are the sole account holder on all your accounts. Don't allow them to add you as a signer on any of their accounts. Honestly, saving up to get away from your parents needs to be more of a priority than a car right now. Regarding your mom saying she'll leave you out of the will, I doubt there will be anything to leave in a will at all, considering your parents are trying to borrow money from their child and attempting to get said child to take out a loan on their behalf. Story 6. Am I the asshole for calling my husband's actions childish? My husband is not my daughter's biological father. Her biological dad is not in the picture, but he has been in her life since she was 3, and she is currently 16 and turning 17 in about 2 months, and she calls him dad and everything. Background info: my husband grew up in a hoarder's house, so he is really vigilant about teaching our daughter skills that can help her in the future in regards to hygiene. My daughter and husband have a good relationship, mostly, but the only problem stems from my daughter's dirtiness. I don't know why, but that girl doesn't like brushing her teeth, bathing, or cleaning her room. She doesn't mind going out with her friends every day of the week, but when it comes to hygiene, she just neglects it. My husband keeps reminding her, and it has gotten to the point that if my husband comes from work, he will ask her if she has brushed or bathed, and immediately we inquire about my daughter's hygiene, and she gets ultimately annoyed. My husband recently decided to take a new approach, and he talked to our daughter and asked her if he could clean her room, so the whole of last Sunday he cleaned her room by himself because he thought she was too overwhelmed to start. So he was basically trying to give her a new start. Her room was really bad, there were moldy drinks and food. On Wednesday, my husband happened to come across my daughter's room, and she hadn't been able to maintain the clean room. My husband was extremely agitated by this and told her to clean her room. My daughter was frustrated with this and told him to leave her alone because she is not his biological dad and he needs to stop acting like this. Now, my daughter used to say this when she was 9 but eventually grew out of it. My husband was surprised by this and immediately left her alone. He left the house and rode his bike, came back, and didn't comment on her room's hygiene anymore. From Wednesday until today, he hasn't really acknowledged my daughter. The two of them have not been communicating. Our daughter was crying about her dad hating her the other day. I told my husband that I understand his frustration, but he needs to understand that kids are ungrateful. She has told me hurtful things that, as parents, we can't just ignore because they hurt our feelings, and I feel like this is childish on his part. I understand his hurt, but I feel like for most of us parents, our children have done hurtful things, and we still do not abandon them. My husband feels like I am not understanding where he is coming from because I am saying all this when our daughter hasn't even apologized. This has put a strain on our relationship. Comments: if your daughter is almost 17 and can't maintain a bedroom, bathe, or brush her teeth, you need an appointment with a pediatric psychologist and psychiatrist ASAP. Also, you need to set up consequences for dirtiness, in consultation with the professionals mentioned above. Many families have something like no cell phone or seeing friends until the room is clean. Story 7. Am I the asshole for laughing at the name my sister chose for her baby? For context, I, 28F, attended a family dinner with my mom, dad, and sister, 26F, yesterday. My sister is due to give birth soon and decided this dinner would be the perfect time to announce the name she chose for her first child. My sister has always been obsessed with aesthetics. Her whole house is beige and rather depressing if I'm honest. The whole nursery she built for baby is beige and grey and will not accept colourful gifts for the baby. I can tell her husband hates it, but he won't admit it. Now here is the issue: I am very prone to laughing at inappropriate times. I am autistic and find it hard to filter what I say and my emotions, which can lead to me reacting to things in ways that can offend people. I didn't think this would cause issues until she revealed the name of her baby. So, we are all done with our dinner. We are looking at my sister as announces her baby will be named Brooklyn Willow Rose, not including surname for privacy. Spelt exactly like that. And then I burst out laughing and said, "You cannot be serious." I am now banned from all family dinners. Is the name really that bad? Was I really a massive asshole? Update: after writing this post, I decided to call my sister and apologize, as when I wrote down what happened I did realize what a dick move that was. I said I was sorry for laughing and I apologized for using my mental disability as an excuse and offered to treat her to lunch as an apology. Understandably, she was reluctant to forgive me, but she did, which I am thankful for. She said she was hurt by my actions, which I understood, but was willing to look past it. I knew posting this story on here would give me the slap in the face that I needed, which I appreciate. And if anyone's wondering, the name is staying. I didn't comment at all on it. Comments. Willow Rose is a pretty name, but Brookley had me doing a spit take with my coffee this morning. Story 8. Am I the asshole for not respecting my friend's religion? Me and my friend are both 16 and have been very close for almost 4 years now, and she's known from the start I like girls. She's straight and very committed to her religion, Orthodox Christian, and talks about issues with church, her faith in God, and the Bible a lot. She's never had a problem, even got me and a past girlfriend together. I've also never been quiet about my sexuality. I've told her if there was a pretty girl around, sent her media things about gay people and issues related to being queer. There's never been a problem with all of this. A couple days ago, we had an argument about something completely unrelated. I had ignored some TikToks she'd sent me because she did the same. She got mad and said I shouldn't have ignored her to be petty. I said she'd been ignoring me when I tried to bring up other more serious things through TikToks, insecurity about my weight, feeling burnt out because of school, feeling exhausted because of dealing with the same problems as always, and generally not feeling okay, and she had completely ignored that and said that I'm always talking about being gay and making it my whole personality. I asked some other friends about this because I don't think I've ever been overly involved talking about my sexuality. They all agreed I didn't talk about it a problematic amount. Then she said she wasn't gay, so she doesn't know how it feels, and that it was unfair to expect a response from her. She usually ignores me when I bring up things related to my sexuality or the topic of homosexuality at all. Then she started saying her religion wasn't okay with it. I've known she doesn't support the LGBTQ+ community, but it's never been a thing in our friendship. She started saying she'd broken a lot of rules and went against what people had said to be friends with me. I'm an atheist and had never had a problem with her religion and completely respect her beliefs, but this looked like her blatantly being homophobic and trying to justify it with religion, as well as trying to deflect from the actual issue at the beginning of the argument. It was a very big fight and we haven't spoken since, and it doesn't look like we will soon. Comments. Not the asshole. Turn it around and have her listen to this argument. You don't seem to be accepting of that I am gay. Okay, each to their own I guess, so, new rule, between us. You don't talk about guys, or the hopes you have finding a husband and having kids, as you are in the same way, pushing your sexuality on me, and I will not talk about girls, and we both decide to not talk religion, that way we both feel as we have healthy boundaries. Story 9. Am I the asshole for refusing to take my girlfriend home from a party after she embarrassed herself? A coworker invited me to a housewarming party. He bought a really nice house with a large yard, a pool, and even a waterfall flowing into the pool. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily friends with him, but we're friendly and make small talk when we see each other. We don't really hang out by ourselves. He's a nice guy, but we don't have too many interests. He told me I can bring my girlfriend. At that party I knew about 3 out of the 40 people there. At the party my girlfriend began complaining to me about the food options, saying they don't follow her diet, she can't eat them, the host should have gotten better food, the paintings on the wall are tacky, his furniture sucks, that the music is pretty lame, and a bunch of other ridiculous complaints. We live in Sao Paulo at the moment, but we're from a region in southern Brazil where most people speak Hunsrück, which is a type of German, though it's a bit distinct from standard German. Someone from Germany wouldn't understand everything I say. She complained in Hunsrück, assuming that everyone at the party only knew Portuguese, but my coworker was near us and he said what I guess is standard German: I'm sorry, we don't have any food that fits your dietary restrictions. If you are hungry, there is a store about 400 meters from here, it closes in an hour. I'm sorry you don't appreciate the music selection, would you like to play something? My girlfriend looked shocked. Her jaw dropped, and she just stuttered for a bit. A few people snicker in the back and another guy translates what happened, and she responded back in Portuguese, "How do you all know German?" I had no idea, and my coworker explains he and 3 other people in this party used to work in Germany and that's how they know each other. My girlfriend pulled me aside and said she's so embarrassed and wants to go home. I told her no, I'm having a good time here and she's begging me to bring her back, saying she's so embarrassed and she can't handle this, and I told her she shouldn't talk shit about people and she's getting what she deserved. This broke out into a screaming match. She demanded I give her the car keys and I refused. We stayed at the party for another 2 to 3 hours. She talked to some other girls, but was kind of quiet. On the ride home, we got into another argument where she says I should have taken her side, and I unleashed a lot of my frustration onto her, saying she is actually the one causing embarrassment by insulting my coworker. She blamed me for not telling her he speaks German. I told her that wasn't relevant and I never thought to bring it up. I honestly didn't know he spoke it that well. He just briefly mentioned living in Germany once at a meeting. So yeah, was I in the wrong here? Comments. Not the asshole. At the end of the day, she did play a stupid game and won a befittingly stupid prize. At least it's just embarrassment. From the context provided, it doesn't seem like anyone else made a big deal about the things she said. I don't think you should be obligated to take her side, being that she was the cause of the embarrassing moment. Also, saying rude things expecting nobody to be able to understand her makes her the asshole in my opinion. Story 10. Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend I don't care about his trauma? I, 26F, have been dating my boyfriend Adam, 25M, for a year. He knows I'm on the spectrum and that I love arcades and retro games. As a kid, I spent hours playing games with my brother, and we had a tradition of going to arcades on our birthdays. My brother passed away before I went to college, which hit me hard, but I kept up the birthday tradition and it's been very healing. Before my birthday, I started making plans to spend time at an arcade with Adam and some of our mutual friends. Adam is unemployed and said he had time to help organize, but he didn't bring it up again, so I planned on my own. I know that not everyone enjoys games, and it was a weeknight, so I let people know that they weren't obligated to come and they're free to leave whenever. I also told Adam, who insisted on staying the whole time. On my birthday, everyone was enjoying the arcade, except Adam. He was on his phone in a corner the whole night, and when I asked if he wanted to play, he said he was fine just watching. I asked him if he was okay and he snapped and told me to quit asking. Friends were shocked, since Adam is usually chill, and throughout the night people were taking me aside and asking if everything was alright between us. Regardless, we had a pretty good time. When I got home I called Adam to see if he was okay. He started venting about how he was made fun of in middle school at an arcade, that going to the arcade had brought up traumatic memories for him, and he didn't appreciate that we kept pressuring him to play. I was taken aback and told him that we just wanted to include him, but he said that he felt attacked and singled out. I apologized and reminded him that he'd been free to leave, but he replied that he would have looked like a dick for leaving his girlfriend behind on her birthday. He said, "Happy birthday though," and hung up. Maybe it's childish for an adult to care so much about their birthday, but I'd been excited to spend time with friends and continue my brother's tradition, so I was hurt. The next time we met, I told Adam that I wish he'd been upfront about how he feels about arcades and that he should have waited to tell me my birthday made him feel like shit instead of literally the night of. He told me that he can't control his PTSD and told me to think from his POV, but I was annoyed by that point, so I told him I don't care about his trauma right now and he needs to learn how to communicate. The conversation didn't end well. When I talked to my friends, some told me that I was overreacting, while others said I have a right to be upset. Adam texted that it wasn't okay for me to dismiss his feelings and that he's available whenever I'm ready to talk like an adult. I just feel really confused, because I'm not used to seeing this side of him, and while I do regret telling him that I don't care about his trauma, I also think he should have communicated better. Comments. That's not PTSD. He's allowed to have painful memories, but he has to act like an adult. Either he removes himself from the situation gracefully, no one would have noticed, or he muddles through like an adult. He doesn't get to glitch out and then also not back down. He had all the runway in the world to maybe think an arcade might be triggering for him and plan accordingly. You had no reason to know. Yeah, saying you were over his trauma in that argument was something you'd not say again, but his being overly sensitive and simultaneously closed off and stubborn. He isn't one to talk about talking like an adult. He went full-on moody middle child at your birthday party, then doubled down thereafter. Story 11. Am I the asshole for planting a mushroom in my roommate's dirty dishes to make a point? I, 25M, have a roommate, Jake, 26M, who has a serious issue with leaving dirty dishes in the sink. We've had several discussions about this, but nothing changes. The mess was getting out of hand, and it was really starting to affect my mental state. Last week, I decided to take a more extreme approach to make my point. I found a mushroom growing outside and decided to plant it in one of the dishes that had been in the sink for a couple of weeks. I thought maybe seeing actual fungus growing in his dishes would make him realize how bad things had gotten. I didn't mean to cause any drama, but Jake's girlfriend ended up finding the dish first. She was horrified, and the situation led to a big argument between them. Apparently, this incident made her realize how much of a slob Jake is, and it ended up being a breaking point for their relationship. Now Jake is furious with me, blaming me for his breakup and calling me a jerk for creating such a situation. I really didn't intend for things to escalate like this, but at the same time his habits are disgusting and need to change regardless of whether his dishes are fertile ground for portobellos. I feel bad about it, so I texted his girlfriend to explain that it was just a joke, but she's had it with him and seems to be done whether it was real or not. I'm worried this is going to ruin my friendship with Jake, but at the same time don't really feel it's all on me. Our friends seem to be siding with him so far. Comments. Not the asshole. You didn't end his relationship, he did. I'm sure Jake's girlfriend gave him many chances and reached the end of her rope. If he continues on his current path of being a slob and blaming other people for the consequences of his actions, his past will be littered with people who are just done with him. Also, folks tend to take the path of least resistance. It's easier to put pressure on the reasonable person, you, than an unreasonable one, Jake. But you are not at fault here. Great idea with the mushroom, by the way. Story 12. Am I the asshole for checking my blood glucose in front of my coworker? Hello, I, 34F, work in a group home for people who require in-home assistance. I have type 1 diabetes, which requires me to manually administer my own insulin as well as closely monitor my blood glucose. I check my blood glucose in multiple ways, such as 1, using an app on my phone that receives data from a sensor I put on my arm, 2, manually scanning my arm sensor with my phone if the app isn't updating or if my phone is out of range of my arm sensor, and 3, doing a blood test. I do this far less than the other methods. I have a coworker, L, 50F, who I work with 5 days a week. Elle has always been a bit invasive about my diabetes, claiming that she is interested in diabetes and that she knows a lot about it. She has a husband with type 2 diabetes and 2 cats who are diabetic. I have had to go outside of what I find comfortable to lay down some boundaries about her and being invasive about my diabetes. She has not taken to my boundaries very well and continues to ask invasive questions. Recently, while I was at work, I manually scanned my arm sensor with my phone to get an updated reading of my blood glucose. I do this fairly regularly. Elle was near me as I did this, and asked me if I was okay, as she always does when she sees me scan my sensor. I told Elle that yes, I am okay and that she does not need to worry about me or ask me if I am okay whenever she sees me scan my sensor, that I will let her know if my blood glucose is low or if I am feeling unwell. Elle said that she only asks because she's a very caring person, and that she's concerned about me, but if that's how I feel she will never ever ask me how I am feeling ever again. She obviously did not actually mean that, as she has still been asking me if I am okay when she sees me check my blood glucose. Here is where I might be the asshole. Elle approached me a day after this interaction and told me that she thought I had been extremely rude to her, and that she only asks if I am okay because she is a caring individual. I told her that my blood glucose and how I'm feeling isn't really any of her business, and restated to her why I sometimes manually scan my arm sensor. Elle laughed sarcastically at me and said, "Wow, that is some response. So rude." Again, I told her I don't think I'm being rude, I think she's being invasive. To this she told me that if I don't want her to ask me how I am feeling when she sees me scan my sensor, that I shouldn't scan in front of her anymore. I was a bit shocked by this, and it got me a bit riled up. I told her that I was not going to do that, that I need to keep a pretty constant eye on my glucose levels, especially at work. Again, she laughed sarcastically at me and said that I should check my glucose level when I am not around her. I told her that no, that doesn't work for me, and that I was going to continue to scan and check my glucose levels regardless of her proximity to me. On mobile. Comments. Wow. Don't monitor your medical condition around me if I'm not allowed to mind your business is wild energy to approach someone with. That is some high-key audacity and entitlement. Here's the thing, caring people show they are caring people by their actions, not by telling you they are caring people. And the number one thing caring people do is respect people when they ask to be left alone. I find that usually when someone has to tell you they're a caring person, it's usually their excuse for being nosy. If she's interested in diabetes, she can go to a library and research to her heart's content, not pester someone who has asked to be left alone. Not the asshole. Story 13. Am I the asshole for refusing to cook for my dad and brother? So, I am a female over 18 and live with my dad, and brother is also over 18. Recently I deleted Uber Eats. I was spending way too much money for the convenience of it. After I deleted the app, one began cooking at the house like I used to. Making eggs, oatmeal, sandwiches, mac and cheese, etc. After cooking I'd clean up after myself. Whatever dishes I'd used I'd wash dry and put away. My dad and brother have a habit of asking me to cook whatever I'm making for them whenever I start cooking, whether it be breakfast, lunch or dinner. The problem starts because I'm the only one actively working. My brother quit his job because he was overwhelmed. My dad tore a muscle in his shoulder at work and had surgery to fix it. My dad is better and isn't in a sling anymore. He started therapy. My brother is lazy and doesn't want to work. Every time they ask me to cook for them, and if I decide to do it, I end up cleaning up by myself anyway. Neither of them offer to do it or help. My dad recently has been having me clean the house, sweeping, mopping and vacuuming, taking the garbage out and pulling the cans to the curb. He's also had me start cutting the grass and pulling weeds and such outside. On top of my full-time job. Since my brother refuses to do anything other than get high and play video games in his room. In short, I'm overwhelmed. I'm doing pretty much everything around the house, cooking, cleaning and taking care of the yard. By myself. My dad just sits in his recliner and watches TV. Now I understand taking care of everything when his arm was majority screwed up. But my brother can help and just refuses to. As of lately I've started refusing to cook for them. They started calling me a bitch and a brat. Since you're cooking anyway. However, I do know that it's still cheaper for me to live with my dad. If I move out and buy a house or move into an apartment, I'll be doing everything anyway. I've been overwhelmed for a while. When I ask them to help out, I get told to do it myself or figure it out. Am I an asshole for not cooking for them? Am I actually being a bitch? Edit, dear God, this blew up. Okay, so I'll answer some repeated questions, and I'll try to read everyone's comments and reply where I can. My parents are divorced. Mom and stepdad live in another state. Mom and I have a bad relationship. She's also abusive. I pay for the groceries. Dad has social anxiety and hates going to the store by himself. Brother just doesn't shop. He still uses Uber Eats. I'm currently looking at apartments, and I'm not going to let my dad and brother know for my own safety. I've tried negotiating splitting up the chores and cooking. They do change for a few days. Then it goes back to me doing everything. I agree completely that it's misogynistic and that the situation isn't great. I didn't realize how abusive it was getting until everyone started saying that it was. Comments. Not the asshole. There is a difference between doing everything for 3 people and just taking care of yourself. At the trajectory you're on, you're going to burn out. So as Redditors everywhere say, don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Story 14. Am I the asshole? My mom expects me, 32F, to tell her things my brother, 16M, tells me. Okay, so I'm 32, my brother is 16. I have my own 2 kids, and I'm very close with my brother and my parents. My brother confides in me about stuff, as a regular sibling relationship. For example, breakups with girlfriends, and he recently started having some drinks with friends. For some reason, he doesn't want to tell my mom these things. When I was younger, my mom was a lot more calm and understanding. I understand why he doesn't want to tell her things sometimes. She can be a little unhinged. My mom gets so mad at me for not telling her things he tells me. She got very angry at me for not telling her about a breakup my brother had. But he asked me not to, and I want to keep his trust. My parents just found out he has been having some drinks with his friends. My mom is so mad at me for not telling her and thinks I'm a terrible sister for not trying to protect him. I would absolutely tell my parents anything that he tells me if I believed he was in trouble or making very bad decisions. Comments. Not the asshole. At this point you're the person he knows he can call if he's ever in trouble. Keep that trust because it's so important, especially at this age. Your mom needs to back off because all she's doing is teaching him how to sneak around without her knowing. Story 15. Am I the asshole for sitting in the disability seats with my service dog? I, 20M, have several disabilities, including one that affects my mobility and sight. I take the bus sometimes to get to and from doctor appointments because it is convenient to me. I do not have any visible disability, but I do get told I look blind with my service dog. She does do guide work, but I think it's just the stigma that only blind people and veterans get service dogs. Even when the bus is empty, but especially when it's full, I sit in the elderly disabled seating because it gives my dog more space under the seat. The other day the bus was very crowded and a few older people were already standing when I got on. I sat down with my service dog and people were petting and harassing her. I told them she was working and put my foot in front of her head. That's the end of that. People next to me, a woman and who I assume to be her mom as well as 7 young kids with them, start talking about how it's a shame people fake disabilities to get service dogs and then sit in the disabled seats like they're allowed to do that when older people are standing. The older lady and all of those kids were sitting, taking up 16 seats because of how they were sitting, and so on. I told them they shouldn't judge, and if it was a concern of hers she should have her kids sit next to each other as not to take up so many seats. She called me an asshole. Am I? Comments. Not the asshole. I was in my late teens and went shopping with my friend who has a heart condition and has a disabled badge, blue badge for you ukers, which we used to park closer to the shopping mall entrance. She doesn't do much walking inside, she just like the vibe, haha, but those extra few steps means the world of difference between being exhausted after visiting one shop or managing a few before sitting out. Random woman came to us as we parked and ranted about how young people these days don't respect, etc., and basically pointed at my friend and said, "Look at her, she's not disabled. You should both be ashamed." At that age we just meekly apologized. If that happened today, 20-ish years on, I would not be sitting by my friend and taking that meekly. It's as ableist as fuck. Thank you for watching, see you in the next one.